Hello and welcome back to the Genesis Designs and Modelcraft bench, and today I've got a quick inbox or unboxing if you prefer of this Fengda professional airbrush, the Elite airbrush kit. So this is the FE-180K. So I've bought this from Amazon specifically to use for the upcoming Book of Genesis tips and tricks videos, as I want to be able to show a direct comparison between the operation of a premium airbrush, if you like, my Iwatas that I use on a day-to-day basis, and this, which is a cheaper airbrush. So for perspective's sake, this airbrush, I've just picked this up off Amazon UK for £27.95, including delivery. Pretty cheap, I think you'll agree. So without any further preamble then, shall we look at what we get in the box? It's quite nicely packaged, I think you'll agree. So in the slipcase we have a plastic container which has another plastic container, and this is what we get for our £27.95. The paperwork, this is just a hope you're happy notice. Really see the point of those, but they seem to come in everything these days. And some very succinct instructions. Operation: 1. Connect air supply. 2. Add medium into the reservoir after thinning to the desired consistency. 3. Adjust backstop as needed, etc. It's very basic. And then you've got an exploded diagram on the reverse showing you all the parts of the airbrush and what they're called. So this kit, the FE-180 airbrush, comes in various different sizes. This kit is the 0.2, just gets the box to just confirm. It's the 0.2 and the 0.3 nozzle sets in this kit. Okay then, so first and foremost, Airline, a quite reasonable looking braided Airline included in the kit, and not only do you get the Airline but an adapter for fitting to your compressor, which is quite impressive. I've not had an airbrush yet that's come with an adapter, never mind a braided hose, so that's nice. It's a good start. There's a pipette for some reason, no idea what that's all about. Tiny spanner for undoing the air nozzle, and then here we have the spare or additional needle setup. So this is the 0.3 needle and the matching nozzle and air caps. So these have to be different because basically the aperture in the end there is a different size for the 0.3 needle. So pop those back in there so as not to throw them on the floor and lose them forever. I'll get the brush out and we'll pop the box to one side. So here we go. This is the airbrush. It's quite a decent weight in the hand, and the thing that struck me immediately when I got it out of the box is how similar it is to my Iwata Custom Micron C+ airbrush. Now this airbrush is a £400 airbrush these days. I mean, I've had it a few years and I did not pay that for it, but these will cost you over £400 now, and the similarity visually and externally between these two is, shall I say, dramatic. They're virtually identical. So clearly it's a sort of a based, shall we say, based on the Custom Micron airbrush series. So this is set up with the 0.2 setup as it comes. You've got a push on lid, again just like an Iwata, with a decent sized colour cup. Possibly if you're using a 0.2mm setup you don't really necessarily need a colour cup this big, but yeah, it's no biggie. So you have a built-in MAC valve here. MAC valve, for those who are not aware, this adjusts the air pressure at the nozzle, so you can set, I'm a big fan of these because you can set your compressor to a highish pressure, say 2.5 bar, and then you can fine-tune your air requirements at the airbrush. It's much easier than fiddling around trying to get the compressor set just so. Adjustable. You got your cut out handle here with an adjuster at the back. Now this adjuster allows you to set how far back the needle will come. So this is fully open, and then you can screw that in, and you see the lever coming forward, and that just sets it so that if you're not confident, you're not sure, you can limit the amount you can pull the trigger, so you're less likely to splurge a great big load of paint onto your work and ruin it. And the immediate thing that I notice, honestly, is it's heavy. You know, it has that heavy kind of quality feel about it that you like from an airbrush, but as soon as you start to turn any of these screws, you start to feel the difference. If I take my admittedly £400 airbrush, if I take the initial tightness off this body, note, if I bring it up close, there's little to no play in that now that I've taken the actual sort of tightness off that thread. See, that's not moving at all. This one, however, as soon as you take that tightness off, look how much play there is in this thread. Now, there you go, it's considerable. Now the thing with this is it doesn't matter, it really doesn't matter to the operation of the airbrush whether or not these threads beautifully match, but what it shows you is how the manufacturers have saved the money. At the end of the day, there's a reason this airbrush costs £400, and it isn't all about marketing. There's a bit of that, obviously, but it's because the quality of all of the parts and the manufacture of those parts is intensely brilliant throughout the entire process. The same is true here. I've got the needle out and it's got a nice taper on it. It doesn't have the double taper of an Iwata needle, it's a straight standard taper, but more importantly it's not smooth. I can feel a distinct texture on this, and it feels quite flimsy, to be honest. Let's take this one out. It's the Iwata needle. I mean, to be honest, you can see the difference. It's hard chrome finish, and it's smooth, and it just feels less liable to bend. I mean, I don't typically go around bending airbrush needles for fun, and I'm sure you don't either, but if they're very easy to bend, it's obviously easier to bend them by accident. I've noticed the same aspect with the Mac valve. See, on this one, it's like turning greased butter. It's so smooth, and there's no play in that thread at all. Whereas this one, again, let's take that tightness off, and you could see how much that moves. And the more you come out of the thread, the more it moves. And that's just indicative of lower quality manufacturing. Simple as that. Okay. Take the ends off here. This one's nicer. Comes apart a bit more nicely. And then you're down to taking the nozzle off, and that's what the small spanner is for. Pop that on there, take the tightness out of it, and off she comes. So that's all stripped down with absolutely no bother. I note that this needle nozzle actually has an O-ring on it. Focus please, thank you. Note the O-ring there at the back of the nozzle. The Iwata brushes do not have that. And again, I'll wager that the reason for that is that the machining tolerances are such that it just doesn't need an O-ring to seal. So you see the theme I'm getting at here. This is a £27.95 airbrush. That's a sort of £400+ airbrush. There is going to be a difference. But there you can see what that difference is. Potentially, this brush might not last quite as well as the Iwata, and I do not know, I'm going to be honest, I don't know if spare parts are available for these in the same way that they are for, you can buy any part of any Iwata from any Iwata dealer. There, this is how similar it is. I've just screwed the body of the Custom Micron Plus straight onto this Fengda, so it's clearly heavily based on the more expensive brush. So here you go, that is very quick and dirty first impressions. So let's get some paint mixed up, pop it in the brush and we'll give it a little test. Okay then, so I've chucked a bit of MRP Mr. Paint Doxy Grey in the brush. The reason I've used this is because honestly it was sat at the side of the bench close at hand, but also this paint comes pre-mixed and it is a relatively sensible thickness, if you like, for a lot of tasks. Not being funny, I will thin this a bit more if I'm doing detail work, but just for base reference this is standard MRP as it comes, chucked straight in. Now remember this is a 0.2 needle setup in here, which is a pretty fine setup, so you need to expect to be able to do this kind of stuff. So to get a line this fine, I'm literally resting the nozzle on this tissue and just bringing the needle back and boom, easy peasy. If you pull the airbrush back a bit, come away, seems like it's atomising quite nicely and working as you'd expect an airbrush to work. But the trouble with spraying onto paper is it's really easy and it does make everything look good because the paper takes away, gives you a lot of margin for error. So let's try it on a model. So I'm not going to spray Dotty today. Dotty always gets all the love. So let's get Dora out today and we'll have a little play with Dora. So let's try just putting the freehand demark along here. And this is genuinely the first time I've used this. This is 5 minutes after I just left you, so. Yeah, that works. So there you go. That's a sufficiently tight freehand demarcation that it pretty much sits in that panel line and it could almost pass for a hard masked edge there. Plus, you can see there's a nice smooth finish there. It's atomising nicely, it's going on smoothly. It's working exactly as you might expect. So if we just, let's go into mottling mode. Can you see what I'm doing? Yes you can. This is why we all use airbrushes after all said and done. Because mottling is fun. Yes. And then I'll draw a straight demarcation across there just to give you a yeah, there you go. I should have picked a darker colour, that isn't showing up all that well, is it? There you go. So, first impressions then. It's not quite as fine as the 0.18 setup in my Custom Micron, but I genuinely did not expect it to be. So in use then, you see that door, okay, the Mac valve, what I'm going to do, I'm going to pull the trigger down just to get air, so double action airbrush, push the trigger down for air, pull it back for paint. I'm going to put it down just for air and show you how coarse this adjustment is. You can hear the change in tone and you can see that I don't have to turn that very much to achieve it. By comparison to the Iwata version, it's a much coarser adjustment. The Iwata version, you can adjust it much more finely. Pay your money, take your choice. Some people are really not going to be excited about that. By the same token, I've removed the backstop. I've screwed this out so that the backstop isn't there. I prefer to trust my fingers. If you're really new to airbrushing, then by all means use the backstop, but it really should be kind of like a safety net rather than something you just rely on all the time. Same thing is true with the trigger action. Pushing the trigger down is smooth enough because there's little movement in, but when you're pulling it back, I can feel there's a slight notchiness basically about the way the trigger pulls. It's It's not affecting the control that I have, but I can feel it, so it's in my mind that it's there. Yeah, especially when you're getting towards wide open, there's quite a lot of resistance. It's like there's quite a firm spring in there, plus a bit of mechanical resistance. So yeah, it's a lot less smooth than my premium airbrushes are, which I would expect, honestly. But yeah, it's a lot less smooth. However, I think overall, for the price, I can't knock it at all. As I said at the beginning, there's a reason why the custom micron airbrush costs £400. Maybe £50 of it is marketing, but the rest of it is just pure quality. I think for a beginner or somebody on a budget, you know, everyone doesn't have £400 to spend on an airbrush, I get that. But I reckon most of us have can manage £27.95, and I think if you're on that end of the budget scale and you'd like an airbrush and you don't know what to buy, there are so many choices, and you don't want to spend £100 on the wrong one. Maybe you could drop £27.95 on one of these and just get on with learning to airbrush. I don't at this point see that being an issue, so I'll end this video on that note. I'm going to say yes, I recommend this to anybody who might be looking to buy their first airbrush and is on a budget. It is not as smooth as a premium airbrush is to use, but to be fair, it may wear in use, and I will strip it down and see if I can't apply a bit of lubrication here and there to smooth things along. And I'll report back in Book of Genesis Part 1, which will be upcoming very shortly, where I will directly compare this to my Water Revolution, which is my daily driver, and we'll talk about the relative merits of the two. So until then, look after yourselves, look after each other, and Genesis out. P.S. I just took it to pieces and lubed it. Check it out. Smooth as a nut. So, quickly, I pulled the trigger assembly out. I've lubed it inside there. I managed to free this off. This is actually adjustable. And it was screwed all the way in so tight that it didn't seem to want to turn. So with the careful use of some pliers, I've backed that off a bit, which has taken some of that spring pressure off, or loosened that spring, and now beautiful, smooth as you like. Can't beat a bit of lubrication. Till next time, chaps.